Here in Siman Tov Kuf Lamed Gimel, we are up to Tzvi Thaler, the third to last line on page 8. The Mechaber says in Tzvi Thaler, Sod Adam Dogim Kol Ma Sheyochol Lotzud. A person can go fishing on Chol Hamoed and catch as many fish as he can. Umoleach HaKol Bamoed, and he can salt all the fish on Chol Hamoed. Sharei Efsher Sheyocha Mehem Bamoed, because it is possible that he can eat these fish on Chol Hamoed. Im yischot osan biyado pa'omim rabos ad sheyisrakechu, as long as he will squeeze them in his hand many times until the fish become soft. And therefore, because it's possible that he will use any of these fish, as we'll see, on Chol Hamoed, so it's mutter to go fish and catch as many as you want. The Ramah writes, "Mutter latzuda mefarhesya." Not only allowed to go fishing, but you can go fishing publicly. Shenikar lakol shehu l'tzarach hamoed. It's clear to everyone that when you're catching this fish, it is a tzarach hamoed. So says the Mishaburas of Katan Yudches, Kol ma sheyochel lotzud. You can catch as many fish as you want. Umashma dafilu hu muchach bevadai shu yoser mikidei hatzarach lamoed gam kein shari. The mashmos of the Mechaber is, even if it's clear to anyone who sees you that you are catching more fish than will be needed for the moed, it's still mutter. V'lo dami lekemach b'sef aleph u'chiagavna de'eno mutter elo b'chdei tzarko b'harvacha. And it's not similar to that which we learned in Sef Aleph when it comes to flour and the grinding of flour. It's only mutter, that which you're going to need for Chol Hamoed, and to do it berevach, to have a little bit of revach that you may be left over, but you can't do an overabundance. So what's the difference if by fishing it's okay? Because shani hachos she'ein kol dog shava b'tamo. Not every fish is equal in its taste. All fish taste differently. V'al kol tzida yishlom Hashem yimtza mishubachim b'yoser. And each time he throws in the line, you could say maybe he's going to catch more geshmak of fish. They might be better. V'hu kavod yantif, and that's in fact kavod yantif, to catch more fish, and you might get better ones. That's kavod yantif, as opposed to grinding up flour. All flour was created equal, but not all fish were created equal. Sivkota new test, and Moleach HaKol Bamoed, not only allowed to catch all the fish, you're also allowed to salt them. But Salomer needs to say the Lo Domi L'Sif Gimel. This is not similar to what we learned yesterday in Sif Gimel. The Lo Shari L'Lakdam Kidei L'Kovsham. We said yesterday you can't pluck as many fruit as you want in order to pickle them. Hasam Shani, there it's different. The Mechubashim Einam Ru'uyim Lecho B'Meshech Eze Yomim. When you pickle fruit, so while they're getting pickled in the interim, they're not edible. And therefore pickling fruit or vegetables on the moed is really doing it purely for Yemei HaChol, for after Yontif. Masha'enken bedogim, which is not the case by fish, like the Mechaber tells us, Efshar alidei atchak lischot v'lechol. You're able to squeeze them and somehow soften them and make them edible, even though you have salted them. V'imkein efshar diyehona meizeh gam ken b'yontov, and therefore it's possible that you will in fact benefit from these fish that you are salting on Yontif itself. V'lav tzarech chol b'luchut tarach, and therefore it's not considered that you will be tareach for needs of chol alone. Now, if you look at note number 21, he talks about going fishing on Chol Hamoed for sport, which is what most of us would do. It's not so much to eat all the fish, but it's to do it for fun. Ule'inyan adam hadog dogim l'tainug ba'alma. A person who's going fishing just for pleasure. Just by the way, not all of the Mishaburas now are the same with the notes. In the newest Mishabura, it's note 21 in the Dirshu, but in the older Madura Basra, so it's note number 20. We'll have to keep that in mind. But here in the newest one, it's in note 21. In terms of going fishing for enjoyment on Chol Hamoed, ve'eno miskavin la'ochlam, and you're not planning to eat them. So Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Rav Wosner both say sha'aser latzudam af im misaneg b'tzidasam. Even though you very much enjoy fishing, you are not allowed to fish on Chol Hamoed if you're not planning on eating the fish. V'chein das hashalosh and shuvas be'er Moshe. However, me'idach das lagon of Moshe Feinstein shemuter lo latzudam b'moed, you are allowed to fish for enjoyment on Chol Hamoed. Shekevan shemisaneg b'tzidasam, since you enjoy the catching of the fish, zeu tzarach hamoed, that itself is called a tzarach hamoed. Uladaito adif shemikamokam yochel mehem. But even Rav Moshe says it would be better to eat some of them, but you are allowed to go fishing just for enjoyment on Chol Hamoed. That is a very important point. Says the Mishabura Vaitis of Katan Chaf Umutter Latsudam Farhesia. The Ramah told us not only allowed to catch fish, like the Mechaber said, and as many as you want, because you might need any one of them, which is the most geschmack of fish. You're even allowed to do it, says the Ramah, in public, because it's nicker to everyone you're doing Chol Hamoed. Ukemosha mutter b'savlin b'simen tov kuf lamites. If you're like the Mechaber will tell us later on, when it comes to selling spices, since it is known that the spices are used for immediate use, so it's known that when you're buying the spices or selling them, it is for Chol Hamoed or Yontif use. So too with the fish. Umashma lefizeh the lav dafka b'tzoda la'atzmo. It's mashma according to this that it's not specifically that you're catching the fish for yourself. Ela afilu b'tzayod she'umunaso uparnasaso mizeh. Even if you are a professional fisherman and you're doing it for a parnasa, gam kei mutter b'farhesia. Even then, it's mutter to do it in a public scene because people know that the fish are used for immediate use. You can't really store them up, at least in those days. Look what we'll see later on in Tzvi that there are those who argue on this nakuda. Zevuvim v'yatushim, flies and mosquitoes. If they are bothering a person, mutter laharga mechol hamoed, you are allowed to kill them on Chol Hamoed. There's no greater need than getting rid of the mosquitoes and the flies that are bothering you. Even though you could just shoot them away, chase them away, as we know, they'll come right back, and therefore you are allowed to kill them on Chol Hamoed. That concludes Tzvi Thaler. Now we'll begin Tzvi. Kol malachos, shem l'tzarach hamoed. Any malacha that is done for the needs of the yontif, kisha osin osam umonehem. If the professionals in that field are doing them, osim bitzina, they have to do the malacha in private. Ketzad, how so? Hatzayodim, the hunters. The Ramah says shel chayos va'ofos. We'll see why he leaves off fish, l'shitaso, in what we just said, that you're allowed to do vav-Hil. The Ramah is the one who just told us that mutter latzudim mefarhesia. So the Ramah l'shitaso adjusts the Mechaber that says the example of the professionals that have to do their malacha in private is the hunters of chayos va'ofos, va'tochanim, and those who are doing the grinding of the wheat, va'botzrim, those who are doing the harvesting of the grapes, limkor bashuk, in order to sell these items in the market. Harei elu osim b'tzino l'tzarach hamoed. They can only do these malachos in a private manner for the needs of Yontif. The Ramah writes, "Umuter lachlov habehema afilu shelo l'tzarach hamoed." You are allowed to milk a behema even if it is not for tzarach hamoed. The havi davar ha'avid, that is a davar ha'avid. The Aruch HaShulchan explains that if you don't milk the animal, the milk will get ruined. And the Aruch HaShulchan also says, besides it, it's a davar ha'avid, it's also tzar b'alechayim. If the animal is not milked, it's going to cause pain to the animal. So we have two reasons that you are allowed to milk an animal on Chol Hamoed. Says the Mishabura Sev Kadon Chav Alav Kol Malacha Shem L'Tzarach Hamoed. Any malacha that's in need of the moed. What Solomon means to say, Av She Be'emes Hi L'Tzarach Hamoed. Even though in truth it is in need of the yontif, Mikol Makom K'Sha'osim. Still, when you're doing it, you should do it in private. Umari B'Min Malacha She'eno Muchach L'Haroa Shi L'Tzarach Hamoed. We're talking about cases here where the malacha that you're doing is not clear to everyone that it is done for the purposes of the moed. Kegon Hani, the Messiah, like these that we finish off with, the hunter, the grinder, the harvester, it's not clear that he's doing a tzarach hamoed, and therefore you can only do it in a private way. Again, that's the one that told us that you're allowed to sell spices. There the Mechaber gets involved with what you're allowed to sell on Chol Hamoed, what you're not allowed to sell on Chol Hamoed, which things are nicker that is for the yontif, and which ones are not. Sivkoton Yud Beis Umanehem, the professionals, the Ba'adam Prati, Sha'osa La'atzma, the regular person who is doing it for himself, Eino Osed B'Shir Merube, he's not doing it in such great numbers. The Kuli Alma Yadid L'Tzarach Hayomhu. You see someone harvesting a few grapes, you see someone grinding a little bit of wheat, so you know he's doing it for his own purposes, for tzarach hayom, and therefore it's not a problem. Which is not the case. A person who's a professional, this is his job. He's doing a lot at a time. Someone who sees him is going to think he's just doing his regular job. He's not necessarily doing it for yontif, and therefore you can't do it for Hesya. You can only do it in private. If you look at note 24, he points out to L'inyan Ma'afiyah, note 23 for others, L'inyan Ma'afiyah, in terms of a bakery. Hamitzaris chalos v'divrei mafa, when they're baking challah and other pastries, Rosh Zalman Auerbach says, Shemutarim lavod b'chol hamoed afilu b'farhesya. They can keep their bakeries open and be baking publicly on Chol Hamoed. Kevan sha'kol yodim she'osim l'tzarech hamoed. That's an example of things that are known, that people are buying cakes and buying challah for the tzarech of Chol Hamoed and Yontif, and therefore that will be mutter. That's an example of someone who does it in large bulk, but it's known what he's doing, similar to what the Ramah held in the last step, and we'll see in a moment the Ramah holds over here as well, catching fish. Everyone knows that it's being done for Yontif, and therefore it is permissible. As we'll see right now in the Mishabura Vaitis of Kadnuch Gimel, Shechayos v'Ofos, the hunter of Chayos v'Ofos, Haramah Hishmit Dogim. The Ramah left off in his examples the one who is fishing. The savar to be dogim she'ena miskayim harbe, because he goes by fish which will not last a long time. Afilu b'tzayud, even a professional fisherman, yadi kuliyalma, everyone knows the liyoma hu tzoda, that he's planting for, he's fishing for that day, whether it's for him to sell to others, but it's for immediate Chol Hamoed or Yontif use. V'lo ala achar Yontif, it's clear to everyone that he's not doing it for after Yontif. Ubehagavna mutter b'farhesya. And in that case, it is permissible to do it publicly, like we just discussed in the Mishabura back in Siftal. That's a shita of the Ramah, that you can fish in large quantities on Chol Hamoed because it is known that it's going to be used for immediate use. It's not going to be for after Yontif. However, kama poskim cholkim, there are various poskim that argue with this psak of the Ramah. And they argue and say that it is usher for someone to be catching fish, if that's his profession, to do it in public. Kasva poskim, the poskim write, Im nagu tzayodim shelo lotzur b'chol hamoed. If the minhag is that these hunters don't do their hunting on Chol Hamoed, rashoyin lachzor miminhagam, they're allowed to just change their minhag. Ve'ein zeh kemi shenog minhag shel mitzvah. It's not like someone who is knowing a dvar mitzvah and he wants to change it, he has to be matir neder. The adarabba fakert. By not hunting on Chol Hamoed, they are limiting the simcha of the Yontif. Umavur b'Yushalmi, the Yushalmi brings down the tzayodei chaya va'of v'dogim. Those who are hunting wild animals, birds, and fish, mutarim lotzar afilu b'mitzodos gedolos. They're allowed to do their hunting even with the very big nets, v'chiagavna, and similar things. Kedei laharbo simcha beregel. The more you catch, again by the fish, even if you're not giving it to others, the more chance you have of getting the better fish that will taste the best. And if you have a lot, you can sell to others, give out to others. You're being maribis simchas haregel by catching with a larger net. Then di'im i'atom matir lahem elo bechako bechmoros. If you only allow them to do with a hook or a net, a smaller net, ain't sudden elo ma'atum ma'atum simcha, then only catching a little bit, and that will be limiting their simchas yontif. Mishi yesh lo breicha gedola, one who has a large pool, like a large area for fish in his backyard, v'chofer b'tzida, and he digs on the side, she'azuvu amayim v'yitzod hadogim, so that some of the water should pour out and he should be able to catch the fish. Mitzadeh b'magen Avram she'yesh lomar she'aser. Magen Avram says that it possibly is aser. The muchacha milsat feishu l'tzarachol. That's clear. You catch much more fish that way, and then it's already nicker that you're doing it for a purpose of chol as well. V'niruli, it appears to me, the yesh lahakel bazeh ayidei akum, that you would be allowed to do it in this manner, but asking a guy to do it, not to do it yourself. In if in fact you really want it for the moed, doing it this way might look like you're doing it for after the moed, so have a guy do it. As long as it's having in mind for the moed, it would be permissible. Again, all these professionals that are doing it for professional use, even though it's for yontif, for the regel, still they should only do it in private. Whether it's the actual trapping of the animals, the grinding of the wheat, the harvesting of the grapes, or whether it is selling any of these items, all these things should be done in private. Like we'll see later on, in that same siman that we keep referencing, that says things that are not nicker, that it's a tzarech haregel, there you should only do it in private. Look at the Biur Halacha where he discusses when you're selling fish, those who are knowing to sell it publicly, you don't have to protest against them. They have who to rely on to be selling the fish in a public manner. If you look at note 25 He says, "V'tam adavar kasav d'bir halacha." The halacha writes over here the reason shekol davar shenikar. Again, the same idea. Anything that's recognizable, shemocher l'tzarach hamoed, that you're selling of the purpose of the moed, ketavlin ubesamim, like the stuff that's discussed in that siman that we keep quoting, tov kud lamites, like it comes to selling spices, mutter limkor b'farhesia, anything like that you're allowed to sell publicly. V'chein le'inyan mechiras aravos b'chag ha'sukkos. So too, if one wants to sell aravos on sukkos, l'tzarach achlofas aravos shebelulav, in order that people could switch up their aravos they have in the lulav, which is recommended. Olo Oshana Rabbah, you're selling aravos for the purposes of Oshanos and Oshana Rabbah. Shlomo Zalman says, shemuter lekotvan or lumocher mamoed, you're allowed to not only pluck them, you're also allowed to sell them on the moed, even in a public fashion, because again, it's dhikr to everyone that you're doing it in fact for the regel. We'll stop here, and Amir Hashem will begin Siman Taf Kuf Lamed Dalet tomorrow.